Welcome, all of you, to Interise 2020. I'm Laura Lee Charles, Senior Manager of Network Engagement at Interise, and Interise is thrilled to have you here this morning. I hope you are all ready for a big day of big thinking, impactful networking, and rapid-fire talks. It was just about a year ago when we conceived of Interise 2020, and it has been quite a year since then. For Interise, the rationale for Interise 2020 is quite simple. The United States exhibits wider disparities of wealth between rich and poor than any other major developed nation. Interise believes that the #1 problem facing America today is economic inequality and the widening wealth gap, particularly the racial wealth gap. The work we do, scaling small minority-owned businesses and those located in low-income areas, directly addresses this problem. It builds wealth for business owners, for their employees, and for their communities. But we also know that business development is only a piece of this system-wide problem. So we thought, let's bring together the field to collaboratively address this issue, to confront and question these systems at play, and to make commitments to action. Let's solve it and build a truly inclusive economy. And you know what? The field and you as individuals responded. Last fall, when we put out our call for speakers, we received over 130 proposals for Solve It Talks within a matter of weeks. We have an incredible group of speakers today, and I know that you want to jump right into the rhythm of the day, but first, just a couple of notes. The pace of the day is going to be very quick. We do have breaks built in, but please feel free to get up, stretch your legs, grab another cup of coffee whenever you need to. We have a commitment wall set up right outside of the ballroom here. We will be asking each and every one of you to make commitments to action throughout the duration of this conference. There are cards on the commitment wall that you can fill out, and then we'll also be using an event app, which, if you have not yet downloaded it, the instructions are on the back of your name tag to do so. And there's a link right in the app to make a commitment as well. So we'll be gathering those and sharing them on our commitment wall out there, sharing them on the big screen in here. The event app you can also use to check on the schedule for the conference, connect with other attendees, connect with the speakers. And today, we'll be using it to field questions for our Solve It Talks and for our panels. We won't be doing live Q&A in the room, but if you go into the session or the talk in your app, you can submit a question through there, and our speakers will be responding to a few questions right in the activity feed, so we can start a discussion around the conversations coming out of these talks. We also, for our small business owners, have a Solve It room set up. It's at the other end of the second floor. Throughout the day, you can sign up for one-on-one advising sessions. We have advisors and business coaches in there to meet with you. We're joined by the SBA, ICA Group, and Berkshire Bank. And then we also have an Interise concierge service, so our staff is available to help you find those connections and resources that are in this room. We just have an incredible amount of knowledge and connection right here in this room. Myself, as well as the rest of the Interise team, we have bright orange lanyards, so if you have questions or need anything throughout the conference, please find one of us. And so with that, we would like to get started. We are here to question everything. We are here to start solving for an inclusive economy. So go ahead and grab another cup of coffee, and let's go.
Please join me in welcoming to the stage Daryl Byers, Interise's CEO.
Good morning. Thank you, Laura, and thank you all for being here. Now, despite what you may have heard about Boston, 65, 70 degrees is a typical winter day here for those of you outside the city. This is an historic day for us and for our field, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you. Also want to thank our sponsors, the Kauffman Foundation, the Intuit Foundation, Berkshire Bank, Santander, and the Massachusetts Growth Capital Corporation. And finally, I would like to thank you and the Interise team who have worked so hard not only to create this amazing event, but also for the past 15 years. I'd like to ask the staff of Interise to please stand so everyone can see who you are. And we also have a fabulous board. And I'd like to ask our board members to please stand and acknowledge them. So Laura's just challenged us to ask questions, so here are a few for you. How do we solve generations of economic exclusion? How do we dismantle an economy built on oppression? And how do we change the system? We are here to tackle these big questions and others today. It's the hope of Interise 2020 that we can collectively look at systemic issues that have been plaguing our country since its inception. But to look at them anew, differently, thinking from different angles, from inside and out, and how to solve for answers that will change the world. And with that on your mind, it's an honor for me to introduce Boston Mayor Martin Walsh. Since 2013, Mayor Walsh has brought a different perspective to the conversation locally and nationally, creating an economy that is inclusive and advocating for income equality through his founding role as Vice Chair of the Cities of Opportunities Task Force at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Also, just this past November, the mayor created by executive order more opportunities for women and minority-owned contractors to do business with City Hall, seeking to solve a decades-long issue of low diversity among the city's suppliers. Mayor, we are honored to have you to launch the conference and conversations here at Interise 2020. Mayor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Darrell, and it's an honor to be here today. It's those of you that don't understand what I am saying, there's translation services out in the hallway. Those of you not from Boston, I spoke at a conference one time for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I was up there and I was talking, and I sat back down, and how'd I do? He goes, half the room didn't have a clue what you said. So as a Bostonian, I have to slow down and talk. And as Darrell said, the weather today is supposed to be 30 degrees and cold, and it's not. And so we had the spring ahead clock this weekend, so I think all our clocks are off today. So I want to welcome you here to Boston. Thank you, everyone at Interise. Welcome on behalf of the City of Boston. We're also joined, and you're going to hear from her in a few minutes, the Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Karyn Polito, who's here with us as well today, with you today, I should say, as you begin this very important conversation. You're all here because you care about building a more inclusive economy. As Darrell mentioned, I was elected in 2013 as mayor of the City of Boston. When I got elected mayor of the City of Boston, I previously served 16 years in the House of Representatives in the Massachusetts legislature. Actually, the Lieutenant Governor and myself served together in the legislature. And when I became the mayor, one of the things that we immediately found out is that, and it was being done in the city, but not as aggressive, is creating a more inclusive economy, building more an inclusive society. And I just want to give you, the people in this room, a snapshot of Boston for a second, in case you're wondering the demographic breakdown of Boston. So we roughly have 700,000 people. We're at the height of our population. Last time we had 700,000 people in Boston was back in the 1950s. Our numbers dipped from 700 down to about 562,000 around the 1980s, and since that time we've been on a steady incline. 28% of the residents that live in Boston were born in another country. So we are truly an international city. 48% of the residents that live in our city are first generation like I am. Both of my parents were born in Ireland. So we are truly an international city. 50% roughly of the people in our city are people of color. And 52% of the households that are led in our city are led by women. So when you think about diversity and you think about inclusion and you think about building an inclusive society, we start to look right in our own backyard. And I don't have the economic breakdowns, but if you look at the economic breakdowns, the trends are pretty much the same as most major cities in America. You know, you have people doing really well and you have people that aren't really doing well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're trying to do there to help people all across every spectrum. Right now, in many parts of our country, as you know, I'm not speaking to people that know this, inequality is getting worse. People are working multiple jobs, not getting as far as their parents did, certainly as the greatest generation, we're seeing steps back. They're carrying more debt. Young people today, when you talk to them, it's like they're not thinking about the future. They don't have a pension system, or they don't have pensions anymore. They're gone. Like my father, when my father retired, he had a pension. When he died, the pension went to my mother and the Social Security. So it was setting up a strong foundation. The next generation doesn't have that. Many of us in this room, many of you in this room don't have that. Or your children certainly don't have that, and they're not even thinking about it. They're not even thinking about pensions and retirement. They're like, how do we get it now, faster, better, bigger, quicker, which is problems. For many, the thought of starting their own business or buying their own home seems totally out of reach. A lot of people want to do that, particularly when, God bless you, particularly when you think about the inequality of our societies today. You have some folks that are not afraid to, and they go out there and they have the ability to build something, and we have so many people that we're talking about today that don't have that chance to kind of get their own stock going. The odds are stacked up against the hardest working Americans. You're all here because you believe we can do better, and we must do better. And I appreciate the work you do in your cities and towns that you come from. Thank you for what you're doing, because the fact that you're here today means that you truly do care. Right now, we don't have a strong federal partner. We know that. Lack of national leadership is clearly holding us back. There's opportunities that were presented before. When I first became the mayor, we had a different president. This isn't about a Democrat-Republican thing. This is about somebody in the White House who just doesn't care. And you have two parties that are so splintered that trying to move our agenda forward and move working-class people forward is not happening. But the beauty is, all across the country, cities like Boston are stepping up. Your cities, you're here today for that reason. I'm part of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We spend a lot of time talking about these issues of inequality and how to move forward. And a lot of the mayors, not all of them, but a lot of the mayors, were on the same page, at least addressing the situation. And that's something that is really important. Right now, Boston is pioneering bold, progressive solutions. We're harnessing the strength of our local economy to invest in things that are going to benefit communities for years to come. We're making record investments in our schools, affordable housing, in public transit, and the Lieutenant Governor can talk about that in a little bit, in parks and libraries, and we're working collectively to make sure that we make those investments. We're also creating innovative ways to get more people on the pathways into middle class. Today is a big milestone for Boston. In a couple of hours, we're going to open literally 2 hours, we're going to open up the first recreational marijuana shop in the city's history in the neighborhood of Dorchester, where I live, not too far from here. It'll be the first one of any major city on the East Coast. The owners of that, Kobe Evans and Kevin Hart, are from Boston. They're Black Americans. Their community's been hard hit by drugs for many generations. So we designed our license process to make sure that those communities will be the first to capitalize and build wealth in this new industry. Both Kobe and Kevin open their store today and will join tens of thousands of small and local businesses in the city of Boston. We're focusing, when we think about our marijuana policy, and not every city has it yet, not every state has it yet, but those of you that do have it, I don't know if anyone's here from Colorado, Denver, Colorado. I want to thank Denver, Colorado. We worked with Mayor Hancock on laying out some policies and how we move forward. I don't know if anyone's here from L.A. We worked with Mayor Garcetti in L.A. On how do we move forward on this policy. But to come back to small businesses, supporting small businesses has always been a pillar of my administration and an economic strategy. Boston has 40,000 small businesses. Think about that. 40,000 small businesses account for a third of the business revenue. Nearly half of all private sector employment happens in small businesses. In the past 3 years, we've created a loan product, $1.7 million for small businesses to form loans and grants and to help people get on their feet. More than half of those businesses are owned by women. 90% are owned by people of color. And for the first time ever, our city's financing an online enterprise is one of the fastest growing segments in Boston's economy. This is an equity strategy, making sure through our economic development arm, how do we reach out and help people? Access to capital has been a barrier forever. It says in my speech here, for generations. I don't think it's ever been an issue that people can say it's been great to access capital. We're taking down those barriers, and you are part of that history, what you're going to be talking about today and what you do. Interise has roots here in Boston. Has offered important programming for more than 15 years. Boston University and Roxbury Community College has helped this organization get started. And the City of Boston Small Business Unit partnered with Interise on a streetwise MBA program right here in East Boston last year in the community that you live in. There's, on the other side of the airport, you have a whole community, probably the most diverse, culturally diverse community in the City of Boston and East Boston. I'm proud of working together. We're going to continue that to make sure we continue to work together. I know that many of you may be interested in learning more about the city's approach. Our strategies are wide-ranging, but they're all aimed at creating equitable, sustainable economic opportunities. We're focused on groups of entrepreneurs who are often overlooked and undervalued. We're working with child care workers, who are majority women and people of color. We're looking at ways to improve access to affordable child care for working families. We're tackling the gender wage gap by training over 10,000 women for free salary negotiation workshops. What is that? That is a program that we started in our Office of Women's Advancement to help women negotiate a salary. I mean, most of you know this. Woman gets a job, guy gets a job, guy goes in, says, oh, I love the job, I want $20,000 more, I want a different title, and generally the response is, okay, absolutely. Woman gets a job, goes in, gets offered a job, doesn't push back on the salary, takes the job and the salary what it's for, there's inequality there. We're training women how to go in and be able to negotiate their higher salary. We've done it for 10,000 women, and we're seeing great success there. We've updated our city procurement policy to increase access for small, local, minority, women-owned, veterans-owned businesses. I would love to stand here and give you a good story on that and tell you that Boston is great and we're doing all kinds of great things there. We're not great on it. We're so far behind on it. Our numbers are dismal, and we're working to recreate how do we get more people of color and women into city-owned contracts. Our numbers, we have about $680 million roughly of city contracts that we give out, and I think the number last year was less than 5% of our contracts went to women and people of color. So we have revamped that whole process, the whole procurement process, to change that. And we're hoping that as next year comes out, the numbers are different. We're also working with families on saving for the future. We started a savings account for every single 5-year-old in the city. We seeded it with $50. We also have an emergency savings program to help municipal employees build rainy day funds. We've increased job training and resources aimed at those programs, at the kinds of jobs our city's producing, so we're going out and trying to get more people into our workforce in the city of Boston. We're providing financial coaching and credit building with the goal of helping 25,000 Bostonians to achieve prime credit score by 2025. That's helping us then when people are going to buy their homes, they have built the credit up and they understand the importance of that. Every year we have what's something called Boston Tax Help Coalition, helps thousands of people get their credit for their tax returns they've earned. We found hundreds of millions of dollars left on the table where people weren't filing their taxes and they were entitled to money. And to be able to go out and help people with taxation, get their filing done, that money goes back into somebody's pocket and goes back into the economy. And it doesn't stay in the federal government's coffers, which is great. We're working, including an earned tax credit and a child tax credit. But the conversation, one of the biggest obstacles and barriers that we see in Boston is housing. For the last, and I mentioned this, when you think about the growth in Boston, 1980, the population is about 560,000 people. In 2020, the population is over 700,000 people. That's a lot of people coming into the city of Boston. The families in the 1980s and the families last time we were at 700,000 people, the families in the 1950s were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in a family. Today they're 1, 2, and maybe 3. So you think about the housing stock, the lack of housing stock, and the crunch that's causing in our city. The last 6 years, we came up with a housing plan. We created record numbers of new homes of all income levels across the city. We've maintained the highest rate of subsidized affordable housing in the nation. In the nation. So there's room to grow in your cities and towns across America to go back and talk about creating more housing that's low income and subsidized housing. 25% of all our rental units are income restricted. We've reduced evictions in Boston by 10% and foreclosures by 60% in the city of Boston. We've offered assistance to first-time homebuyers. In my budget that's coming out that we're working on now, we're revamping our first-time homebuyer program, making more investments to make sure there's more money for first-time homebuyers. We're also putting in, for the first time ever, a city-run voucher program. We'll be one of the only cities in America that has a voucher program in the city, not a federal voucher program, a city voucher program. That's a good, I like the ring, it's a good one. At this year's State of the City address, which was a few weeks ago, I announced over $500 million over the next 5 years in affordable housing. This is an important investment in our city's history. The $500 million I announced, it's a partnership. It's money that we're going to put in from the city. It's also money that we're going to get from selling a piece of property, and it's working with the state and the governor's office to make sure that we're able to get some additional revenue into our economy. Little secret, our governor and lieutenant governor of Massachusetts are Republican, and I'm a Democrat. But when you have a conversation and when you sit down and work together, and you have the same goals and same values moving forward, that makes a big difference. And having that partnership at a state level is really important to us. The work that we're doing is far-reaching, and the work that you're doing is far-reaching. But some of the most important, this is the most important work that we can do as a city. And I know it's the most important work you can do as organizations and people in working for government. The work that we're all doing will have an impact. We can create generational change. Interise is asking speakers for a call for action. Here's mine. To be successful, we need to be creative. We need to be bold, and we need to be brave. And most of all, we need to work together. That is key, because that's not happening in Washington. That's not happening in legislatures around the country. That's starting to seep into city councils and mayor's office around the country, people not working together. There's tremendous opportunity when people collaborate. We're seeing that here in Boston, and we need to continue to move forward and work together. If you're interested in learning about anything in the city's efforts, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office. Members of our economic development are here today, and they'd love to talk to you, and they're going to be here all day, so they're going to work with you. I want to thank each and every one of you, because some of what I said today, you might say, well, we're doing that in our city, and there's a good chance we might have taken your idea. And there's something that we might be saying today that you might take back to your city and take our idea. It's about sharing best practices. It's about taking care of the most vulnerable. I grew up not too far from here in a neighborhood. My parents came to this country with nothing. I'm part of that story. My father was a laborer. My mother was a homemaker. Part of that story. I'm proud of that story. You know, they had 2 kids. One went on to become mayor of the city of Boston. The other one's a laborer. But because of the opportunities my parents had and were given, and it was tough back then, they were able to put us on a path to success. The next generation that we're talking about right now, we're working, isn't having that same story. There's a lot of challenges out there. It's up to all of us in this room, it's up to you in this room to continue to do the work you're doing every single day. You're here today, maybe because you don't want to do this work, because you'd like to see it different, but you're here today because you do this work, because you were chosen to do this work. And we want you to know that I support you any way I can. I'll support you in your cities any way I can. And I want to welcome you to the city of Boston. Thank you for making a difference in our communities across America, and I hope that you enjoy your time in Boston.
Mayor Walsh, we look forward to being bold and brave and working with you to increase opportunities for minority-owned small businesses across Boston. And speaking of bold and brave, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, the Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts, Karyn Polito. I would like to thank the Lieutenant Governor and Governor Baker, who just last week filed legislation to increase the number of projects in which the state could enforce participation goals for companies owned by minorities and women. Lieutenant Polito believes that, and I quote, "The Commonwealth's success is driven by the strength of its diverse expanse of people and places," which is exactly why we're here today. It's an honor. Welcome, Lieutenant Governor Polito. Yeah,
all right, got it. Good morning. It's great to be with all of you today. Thank you very much for coming. I kind of feel sorry for you. You have this room without any windows, and it's almost 70 degrees out there today, so hopefully they let you out for a little fresh air and a glimpse of the beauty of our city from here. I want to thank the mayor for his wonderful remarks and for sharing some of the things that the city is working on to advance the cause of all of the people who live in the city of Boston. He has a great story given his family's immigration to this Commonwealth and seek of a better life for their families. Isn't that why immigrants and new people come to this Commonwealth and to this country to find new opportunities, which is the word that I think will hover around this conference today and over the next few days, is all about opportunity. And let me just start by saying, let me talk a little about the Massachusetts story. The governor and I have the opportunity as the governor, lieutenant governor, to tell our story. We're proud of our story in Massachusetts. When you think about some of the things that the mayor referred to about how we all work together here in Massachusetts, that collaboration, working across party lines. We don't look at our peers and label them politically. We look at them as our partners. And we work really hard as leaders in this Commonwealth, whether we're a city leader like the mayor of Boston, or legislative leaders, or executive branch, cabinet secretaries, or the governor and me, to find common ground and be at the same time inclusive around the diversity of thought all around us. And when you embrace that and you include it in your decision-making and thought process, you come out the other end in a better way. So we're proud of our Massachusetts story, proud that so many have immigrated to this Commonwealth for that better experience. So you can measure it by virtue of the collaborative style of governing. You can measure it by virtue of our economic success, adding over 200,000 new jobs since the governor and I have been in office, now 5 years. You can measure it by the low unemployment rate, so many people working, high labor participation rate. You can measure it by, we have $3.5 billion in our rainy day fund. All those are really good numbers. But the real way to measure the Massachusetts story is really by an individual's experience. Now, we have 351 cities and towns that make up Massachusetts. Those of you who live here, you find yourself in one of those places. Those of you who are visiting, you find yourself in our capital city. But in every place, and I've had the opportunity as lieutenant governor to visit every single one, meet with the local officials and the decision makers in every single place. But the real measure of the story is, how do people feel where they wake up in Massachusetts? Whatever community, rural, suburban, urban, east, west, north, south. How do they feel? Do they feel like their kids have access to the very best education in their community? Do they feel that they're heading to the best job that is available to them in this Massachusetts economy? Do they feel safe and welcomed and supported in the community where they call home? And we think about that a lot in the work that we do. People don't measure how things are going by what's happening up on Beacon Hill, where our executive branch and legislative members sit. They think about it by virtue of where they're from. And so when I think about the conversation today, and we define this innovation economy, which is a pretty big success story here in Massachusetts, you think about all the different opportunities within that umbrella. I have jobs and careers in IT, or life sciences, or healthcare, computer science, engineering, construction. All of those areas are growing, and new industry clusters within each area emerging constantly here in Massachusetts. The question is, does everyone feel that they have access to this innovation economy? Do women feel included? Do communities of color feel included? I happen to chair the Massachusetts STEM Council. We have a council directing efforts around STEM education. And the The story is that 76% of our STEM workforce is white. Of that workforce, even though women make up half of the workforce in Massachusetts, and our workforce is heavily educated in college degrees or higher, women only fill about 26% of computer science and math jobs, 15% of construction and engineering types of jobs, 3% Latino, 5% Black, plugged into the STEM workforce. So those numbers are real. Enterprise does a phenomenal job. They're a research component of how they are trying to solve this. They look at the numbers. So all you have to do is look at the numbers, right? And you see, I see, great opportunity. There are so many more people in our communities of this Commonwealth that if they access the right education path, develop the right skills, connect to the right certificate or credential, they will also see themselves in this innovation economy. Now, STEM jobs, as we know, pay 30 to 40% more than non-STEM jobs. Well, I'm proud of the fact that Massachusetts finally adopted an equal pay for equal work law. Of course, right? That makes sense. Why not access jobs that pay more so you can bring more to your individual economic stability and your families? So there's a few things that we're doing. We just filed an economic development bill, a $240 million bill, a lot of money. It's going to be before the legislature to kind of check out the details and come out the other end with a really great product. But included in that economic development bill are opportunities for small business development. The mayor talked a little about capital and access to capital and loans. We do a lot around startup development, entrepreneurship. That's the ideas that are emerging all around us are really important to cultivate and nurture. We do a lot around collaborative workspaces, putting into urban areas especially a place where entrepreneurs can come to develop their ideas without having to outlay the cost, capital-wise, for the infrastructure, for the equipment, and then they can share space to be able to cultivate their ideas, as examples. The economic development bill has 4 pillars. One of them is community development. I just referred to that. One is business competitiveness, to make sure that we're leveling the playing field for all businesses to expand in Massachusetts. The other is housing. You heard the mayor talk a little about housing. While Massachusetts is tops in many areas, we're also tops in terms of the highest cost to access home ownership or to rent a unit of housing here in the Commonwealth. We have to work more intentionally around that area. But the area that I want to just focus a few minutes on this morning with you are people. Our biggest asset in this Commonwealth has always been and will always be the people and the talent that exists and that we cultivate here in Massachusetts for this economy. People. And people, when armed with a fantastic education and the skills that are employable, they add great value to the future success of our economy. So we need to do more in this area in terms of allowing more people to access opportunity. One of the programs that Darryl just referred to was the affirmative marketing program that our administration put forward last week. We actually were intentional about elevating the Office of Access and Opportunity to the governor's office. So it's no longer in the bowels of an agency, it's at the highest rank of the executive branch. And through the Access and Opportunity Office, we've been able to expand supplier diversity within the contracting and procurement world of state government. We've also been able to, through this program we just announced this week, allow for more communities of color, minorities, and women-owned businesses to access state construction projects. So why is that important? Now, my great-grandfather immigrated to this country from Sicily back in 1909. He came here with the idea that he could work hard and he could build a better life for his family. He had $50 in his pocket and he had a really strong work ethic. But someone gave him a chance. They gave him a chance at his first job. Ultimately, he did a lot of menial work, saved his money, bought a piece of equipment, and that family still exists in my family today, 3 generations later. But someone gave him a chance to access some opportunity, and he made something of that. These programs in state government are all about access to opportunity. You need a place to start. You need to give someone a chance to be part of that project, to be able to prove that they can do the work, and then from there build on that experience. That's why when we assign people to our boards and commissions, we want to expand people's resumes. You add more women in the ranks of our boards and commissions, more communities of color in the ranks of our boards and commissions. In fact, over half of the appointments that the governor and I have made are women. It's because they can add that to their resume. I served on this board. I am developing this level of expertise. This is about giving people a chance. You place bet on people, you give them the chance, and they will rise up to the occasion. On the STEM piece of this, and I referred to the 76% of our STEM workforce is white, I see tremendous opportunity, but we cannot cultivate that opportunity unless we're intentional about it. So 5 years when we came into office, 5 years ago, we learned a couple of things from listening to the business community and listening to people all across our Commonwealth. And it still is a challenge today because employers say to us, we have more jobs than we have people with the skills to do these jobs because our workplaces have changed. Technology has changed everything. It's changed everything about how we consume, how we communicate, and how we do business. And as the governor and I were visiting these workplaces throughout our Commonwealth, functions that were done manually have now transitioned into automation and robotics and more sophisticated skills around how to program new kinds of equipment that is in the workplace. CNC machines, 3D printers, the medical equipment that researchers and doctors use every day is so different than it was even 5, 10 years ago. That we said we're really widening the gap, not closing it, if we just let our education system continue on this path without being relevant to what's happening in the economy. So $78 million later, we've invested state capital dollars into our classrooms. So now many of our classrooms look like the workplace because you have CNC machines and 3D printers and the kinds of things in the workplace in the hands of our students. And we've asked educators to think differently about how you teach. It's not just about here's the subject, I'm going to test you on Friday, like I grew up, and maybe many of you. But we want you to take what we're exposing you to, and we want you to apply it to a problem, and we want you to solve it. And we don't necessarily want you to solve it all by yourself. You can work on a team. You can bring the best ideas of others, your peers, to that situation, and you can problem solve. You can think critically about what we expose you to making that situation better. So applied learning and incorporating that into our education curriculum all across the education systems of Massachusetts, elementary school, middle school, high school. And then we don't want our students graduating from high school and saying, now what am I going to do with my life? We want to start early on, 7th grade, 8th grade, having conversations with kids about what their future can hold. See yourself in these kinds of positions, but you just don't get there. You've got to plan for that. So in 7th and 8th grade, we have these conversations with our kids about career pathways that lead you to the innovation economy. And if you're someone that doesn't have a role model in your life that's gone to college, no worries. We're going to help you start earning credits and earning college credits in high school, called early college. So pick a pathway, early college, and then start your way toward the new jobs and careers that exist in this innovation economy. And I would say today, one of the calls of action that I would have for you is to the workplace, to the employers of the Commonwealth and wherever you are from, to ask them to open up their workplaces for internships, cooperatives, mentorships, apprenticeships. Because if you need talent, then ask the talent to come in. And that is one way to be able to diversify your workforce and also start to assess the talent early on. So internships work, and we make that part of our program. The other piece of this is, when you think about Massachusetts, you think about some of our more notable academic institutions. We are doing very well on college degrees and higher degrees and research and development. A lot of smart people, or as Marty would say, smart. We're wicked smart here in Massachusetts. But this economy and the workforce that it needs cannot only be solved through college degrees and higher. This is a skills and degrees economy. We need programming all throughout that spectrum. We need certificate programs that can be available to people on a short basis, 8 to 10 weeks. We need credential programs where industry is telling us the standard in our industry requires that people have proficiency in these particular details that will earn you a credential. Or you can go through the community college path and then earn a degree from there while you're working. All of those things are really important. So when I talked to you earlier about the $78 million we put into our classroom to transform these spaces into real learning laboratories, they shouldn't just be available during the traditional school day to only the kids that are enrolled in those vocational career technical schools during the day. That's too big of an investment and a tremendous opportunity lost when there are so many more people that want to get in on that education program. So we are proposing to the legislature a second shift and a third shift to be able to use these classrooms for accelerated learning and trainings. The second shift is for other high school students in junior and senior year that were on a wait list for that school to be able to come over after school and access those programs. And then at night and on the weekends, why let the school be dark? Open it up to adults in the community who want to be able to access these programs. But they're working because they're trying to make ends meet for their families. So how are they going to do it all? If they can access on night and weekends a 10-week course, they too can access the innovation economy. Now, finally, you got to just change the mindset, right? We host a STEM week in Massachusetts. It's every October, and that week we just put on steroids, STEM education in Massachusetts, and we get everybody involved. I'll give you an example. The governor and I were recently up at Lawrence Tech. Lawrence is one of our cities here. And I met a young woman. She's a freshman at Lawrence Tech. And I said, how'd you get here? She said, well, there's no one in my family that goes here, and no one knows vocational education. But I had somebody that nudged me along and said, you should go to Lawrence Tech. And she said, well, why would I go there? That's where all the boys go. And she was a young woman of color. She finds herself in a metal fabrication course. And she said, I'm doing great. I absolutely love this. And I am so popular around my house now, I can fix the dishwasher. I can fix the dryer. I can fix the car. I can fix the toilet. Everyone loves me around my house, but I have skills that no one in my family had before. And she finds herself in a place that she didn't necessarily see herself. So the theme is really about seeing yourself in STEM, is what we named our STEM week, and for our communities of color and more women and people throughout our Commonwealth to see themselves in places where they might not have a role model, but certainly their talent is needed. And so I just kind of open that up as the conversation that you're having over the next few days is about all of that. So yes, we need more affordable housing. Yes, we need public transportation that's reliable and works for everyone. Yes, we need an economy that offers a lot of jobs and opportunities, but we need to make sure that these opportunities are accessible to everyone, which is really the goal of Interise as well as our administration. So it's a real pleasure to be here with you today, knowing that over the next few days you're going to be intentional about changing some of the things you're doing in your workplace, incorporating some of these best practices and strategies. And sometimes the hardest thing is just to get started. But today is that opportunity to get started, to do more, and we will all be better off for it. So enjoy your visit. Warm, breezy temps don't always happen around this time of year, so enjoy it, and thank you so much for being here.